just to make sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending the Ordinary Council meeting today. I declare the Ordinary meeting of 28th August 2024 open at 9 a.m. I advise members of the public that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded in accordance with Council standing orders. Councillors and staff are reminded of their responsibilities under their respective codes of conduct, both inside the Council meeting and when dealing externally on behalf of Council. On behalf of Whitsunday Regional Council, I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet here today and pay my respects to elders past and present. We recognise their deep enduring connection to country and we extend our respect and gratitude for their wisdom and culture. Welcome councillors, Whitsunday Regional Council staff, members of the public and media. Item number 1, apologies and leaves of absence. There are no recorded apologies for this meeting. Item number 2 is condolences. I'd like to start this one off this morning. Today, Council would like to remember and extend our condolences to the family and friends of a recently departed Council employee who was tragically killed the morning of the 25th of July 2024. Out of respect and privacy of the family and friends, his name will be kept private at this time. He began working with Council on the 1st of May 2023 as a Senior Environmental Health Officer with the Community Services and Facilitation Directorate. Having a very lengthy career in environmental health, he was an absolute wealth of knowledge in his field, as well as an incredible mentor for upcoming environmental health officers. This tragedy has left a huge void within the team, and he will be remembered as an all-round great person and a real gentleman. We pay respects to his family and friends. Are there any other councillors that wish to acknowledge any recently deceased members of the community? Councillor Finlay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just like to acknowledge Craig Power. Craig was a owner of a well-known food shop up in cafe and restaurant up in Bowen called Food Freaks. Absolutely superb food, and unfortunately Craig's just passed away recently. But he's very likeable and very friendly character in Bowen, and everyone sort of knew Craig. And he actually taught me to eat my steaks not well done, but medium. He actually refused to cook a steak for me well done. He said, "John, as chefs, we don't do that to a steak." So always remember Craig for that. He used to play basketball with me as well. So, and also Esme Power. Esme was a descendant of Jack and Topsy Yasso, the South Sea Islander sort of founders of Bowen. And Esme was part of the Power family up there as well. So, yeah, just like to acknowledge both Craig and Esme.
On behalf of Whitsunday Regional Council, we would like to acknowledge and pay respects to the recently departed of the Whitsundays region and offer our sincere condolences to their families and loved ones. Will you please all stand for a minute's silence? Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Okay, next item is our Junior Elite Athlete presentation. Council provides financial support for junior elite athletes who participate in a representative competition at a regional, state or national level. This grant is provided to applicants by Council to assist in meeting the costs associated with participating in a representative sports program. Today we have some junior elite athletes joining us to be recognised for their outstanding achievements. First one is Kane Higgins for Football Queensland Northern Academy Northern Region Junior Carnival and the Football Queensland Academy Interconference Junior Carnival. Again. Well done, mate. Next one is Freddie Hazelton, National Futsal Championships in Fiji. Next one is Isabel Ruffle, North Queensland Basketball State Championships. Next one is Sebastian Van Eck, Under 14 Mackay Meteors Rep Basketball Queensland State Championships. Millie Groom, North Queensland Triathlon Championships and Queensland Swimming Sprint Championships. Holly Perrin, North Queensland State Swimming Championships and the Queensland School Water Polo Championships. The following athletes all competed at the Queensland Swimming Sprint Championships: Adelaide Sanders, Ruby Harlan, Andy Reynolds, Zachary Treffs, Alexander Treffs and Tate Harlan. Can we give these outstanding athletes a big round of applause, please? Other athletes who are unable to attend this presentation include Joshua King, 2024 Oceania and Australian Swimming Championships, Don Algie, Queensland Sprint Swimming Championships and the Queensland State Swimming Championships, Jacob Godden, Australian Futsal Association Tour in the UK, Nara Suckling, North Queensland Volleyball State Championships, Matilda Nichols, Queensland Sprint Swimming Championships and the North Queensland Aquathlon, Kate Harrison, Australian Under 16 National Volleyball Championships in Bangkok, Harris Delac, North Queensland State Swimming Championships, Tora Delac, North Queensland State Swimming Championships and the Australian Age Swimming Championships, Carolee Gooden, Football Queensland Academy State Carnival, Byron Gooden, Football Queensland Academy State Carnival, Sienna Pennant, North Queensland Volleyball State Championships, Jax Clayworth, Queensland Sprint Swimming Championships and the Queensland State Swimming Championships, Lola Burham, Townsville Country Netball Carnival, Charlie Boorman, Townsville Country Netball Carnival, Donovan Pettiford, North Queensland Volleyball State Championships, Christopher Townsend, North Queensland Volleyball State Championships. Miller Wesley, North Queensland Capricorn AFL State Championships, Luca Miller, Schools Cup State Volleyball Championships. Can we please give a final round of applause for all of our junior athletes? Thank you very much for coming today. We wish you a good rest of the day.
Thank you. You can't give a day at school. You can't give a day at school.
You do wonder, don't you? Tough parents. Okay, our next item is number 3, confirmation of minutes. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Clifford. Dr. Bradshaw, anything to add to the minutes?
I can talk to those if you
Sure.
like, Mr. Mayor. So, councillors, the minutes of the audit committee dated the 30th of July. One of the key purposes of that meeting is to receive the tabling.
What's that?
It's not the audit.
No. We're doing the minutes of the last meeting. No. Okay, put that to the vote. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 4, business arising. Would any council like to raise any business arising from the previous minutes? No? Item number 5, mayoral minute. I have one item to add, and it's a recognition for one of our councillors, Councillor Clifford. Councillor Clifford was fortunate enough to recently receive a Life Member Award, the Australian Local Government Women's Association. So on behalf of myself and Councillor Clifford, we congratulate you on this achievement. Item number 6, notice of motion. No notices of motion have been received for this meeting. Item number 7, deputations. No deputations have been received for this meeting. Item number 8, petitions and questions on notice. Does any councillor have a petition they wish to put on the table? Councillor Clifford.
Yes, I'd like to table this objection to wooden fences facing the existing streetscape and dwellings on the basis that they are non-compliant with the neighbourhood character and visual amenity of the area. It's in St James Drive, Jubilee Pocket. The director and I actually went out and visited the site and met with the residents, and on their behalf I'd like to table that.
Happy to receive. Thank you. Any further petitions or questions on notice from the previous meeting? Thank you. Item number 9, questions from the public gallery. No public questions have been received in advance of the meeting. Questions? Okay, on to item number 10, committees reports. This one, Director Jason, is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes 30th of July 2024. Moved Deputy Mayor, second Councillor Finlay. Would you like to speak to these ones, Director Rachel?
This time I will, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, teach me to get up and get a drink while the meeting starts. Councillors, you have before you the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes for the 30th of July 2024. That meeting considers the draft financial statements, and that's one of its key purposes, scheduled close to the end of the financial year. It also is our opportunity to present the annual benchmarking of our financial performance against other councils, similar category, and present the outcomes of that to the Audit Committee. It also tabled a report in relation to internal audit actions, their verification and completion in terms of the outstanding actions that flow from audit, and it received information also from the Queensland Audit Office as an external briefing. The other matters were in line with the audit charter. Happy to take any questions councillors may have, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, any questions or comment? No? Okay. Motion the council endorse the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit Risk Committee meeting held on the 30th of July 2024. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to officers' reports. Item 11.1, development application for development permit material change of use, short-term accommodation at Coral Esplanade, Canberra. Move Councillor Simpson, second Councillor Wright. Director McGaffin, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure whether we have the PowerPoint presentations. Okay. Mr. Mayor, it's an existing building on Coral Esplanade. It is larger than the normal building. It has 2 units. Each unit has 4 bedrooms and 2 studies with a double garage, and parking in addition to that underneath. There is a swimming pool at the very front. There is no proposal to change the structure, so anybody looking from the outside today will see the same thing tomorrow, or will see exactly the same thing when the premises are being used for short-term accommodation. So on that basis, and with the conditions recommended, the matter is recommended for approval.
Thank you, Director. Would you like to speak to for the matter, Councillor Simpson? No.
Just I know that at the last meeting we turned one of these down, but as the director said, it's an existing building, the same, uses, and it's on the beachfront, which it's got the wow factor. I think it's 565 or thereabouts square metres each unit, so a massive, big building, and it's realistically, it's never going to be a residential apartment unless some billionaire buys it. But no, I support it.
Any other councillors like to speak to this one? Councillor Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I admit it is beachfront, nice place, but it's 2 6-bedroom units, very rare within our area. It is also backing on to everyday residential houses. Some of those are the submitters we have against this. I think you've all heard me go on about the amenity sides of things with this, but this is housing stock, 2 6-bedroom units. We've been told in recent statistics that to keep up with our growth, we need 220 extra dwellings a year. At the moment, we're handing 50 odd dwellings a year over to short-term accommodation. This is 2 right here. I don't see where we can move forward with our local residents when we are taking away housing stock, especially something as rare as 2 6-bedroom units. That's my feelings. I won't be supporting short-term accommodation.
Anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? Motion that council approve the development application for material change of use short-term accommodation at 22 Coral Esplanade, Canberra. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against?
Be recorded, please, Mr. Mayor.
The motion is carried 5-2 with division. Councillor Bowman and Councillor Flynn. Okay, item 11.2, development application for material change of use, medium impact industry, 28 Pearl Place. So I have a declarable conflict of interest that I'd like to declare for this, and I would like to remain in the room. One of the applicants hosted a election sign for myself on a different property to the one listed within the development application. However, I've never met the actual applicant himself. It was organised through another party. So,
I'd like to move that you stay in the room.
thank you. Second, I guess just for transparency, I guess the chairing of this point I would like to hand over to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So do we need to go back to the vote?
So you're voting on whether the mayor stays.
Mayor stays, yeah.
Yep.
It's declarable conflict of interest.
So I'd now like to put to the table that we vote on whether the mayor can stay in the room. Those in favour? Those against? Oh, yeah, I'm in favour. But it is too many jobs now. Those against? So that's carried 6-0.
Yep.
So now we're just moving on to discuss. So I'd like to move to approve this development. And seconded, Councillor Finlay. Director Neil, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. The use being sought as a medium impact industry. It is in a rural residential area. It is unusual to have such a use on a rural residential lot such as this. It's just above 4,000 square metres. I understand that the use commenced somewhere around 2019. There are 2 sheds in the back that are used for the purposes of the processing of fish. There are other domestic structures. The applicant lives on the site, so there are 2 different access points, one to the domestic dwelling and one to the industrial use down the back. The aim is to process about 20 tonnes each year as a maximum. There will be deliveries roughly 4 times a week. Week to week there's likely to be 4 persons employed on the premises. That will increase at times of Easter and Christmas. Hours of operation are basically 8 till 5. There did used to be retail activity being carried out from the site, but there is another site that the retail activity has been relocated to, so there is no further retail activities being carried out. The applicant was not the application was advertised. There were no submissions from the general vicinity. The property has a single-storey dwelling. The sheds down the back where the industrial use operates from is also single-storey, so it basically keeps in the theme. There is no obtrusive built form, and given that it's been there for a while and the majority of the retail activity, all the retail activity has been relocated off the site, the application is recommended for approval.
If I may speak for this application, just working with them over the last couple of years, I know this has been ongoing for a little while. However, they have built a really successful business where they are. They service Collins and Mackay, and where the particular processing is of the seafood, they keep a very neat, tidy and well-kept premise. There's a young family. The young family lives at the front, so it's got to be clean and tidy for their family. And yeah, I think that they've done extremely well to get where they are, and wish them all the best for the future. So yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Simpson.
Just a question to the director. Thanks, acting mayor, I suppose. Director Neil, like as it reads, this business has been operating for 5 odd years with no approvals. So if we approve this today, it will be all up to council's spec. The effluent discharge and everything will meet all of our standards and stuff.
Yes, Councillor Simpson, we've worked in detail with the proponent on that. There was some concern about the disposal of waste on site. The interesting issue was that we found that the activity was being carried out because there was a complaint about stormwater, so not necessarily about effluent disposal or anything else on site. It has been checked and rechecked, and yes, we are confident that everything will be able to be catered for on the site.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Councillor Collins?
I'm in agreement with this. However, you've been operating for 5 years. Is there any health checks at all from the state, or is it local or state? Does it come under safe food? I mean, how do these things operate without approval when they've got health authorities checking stuff out? That's what I'm curious about. So yeah.
So, Councillor, the environmental health officers have been out there on several occasions and either answering or investigating a complaint or just as a re-inspection. Yeah.
Thank you. I agree. Good business retail's moved out of there. Just the undeveloped rural residential on the back and the 1.5 metre setbacks instead of 10 metre setbacks. Are we preempting any issues if that land is developed with those minimum setbacks?
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Look, it's not ideal, excuse me, in respect that we would much prefer it. The issue is, do you accept the 1.5 or do you deny the application and say remove the buildings? So it is a bit awkward in respect that the activity and the use is still there. Excuse me, the use and activity occurred without approval to start with. But certainly the way we've been able to resolve a lot of the issues with on-site effluent disposal and things like that, while 1.5 metres isn't ideal, we think in this instance it's acceptable and there's not a lot of justification to require any further setback.
Thank you. And just to add as well, the neighbours did have a few questions initially, but I know that the proponent has spoken to the neighbours, and I think as long as all the conditions are upheld, they're happy. So if there's no further discussions, I'd like to put that council approve the development application for development permit for material change of use for medium impact seafood processing, 28 Pearl Place, subject to the conditions outlined in attachment 4 to the vote. Those all? Against? So 7-0. Thank you. I'll go back to the mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Moving on to item 11.3, development application for a development permit for reconfiguration for 2 lots into 6 lots for Betzel's Lane, Bowen. Move, councillor.
Mayor, I'd like to again move a procedural motion that we actually defer this item until probably the next agenda. The reasons for that is on the basis that there has been a further letter submitted from a plumber, sort of suggesting that an borrow type system may work, should work on that property. Obviously, our staff haven't had the time to do any analysis of that to come back to council for a report to say yes or no. There's also been other industrial developments done in Bowen outside, I guess, the vicinity of a close sewage main, which operate off a borrow type system. I understand that they are working as well. So I'd just like to defer this motion, this report, until we get an analysis done further on the potential of a borrow system.
Suitability of the other options. Yep.
I'll second that.
Okay. I don't think we need a second, but we will put the procedural motion to defer item 11.3 to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Any other information around that? We're happy with that? Yep. All right, moving on to item 11.4, local housing action plan. I'll move this one, and I'll second Councillor Clifford. Director McGaffin, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council will be well aware of the local housing action plan. We looked at a draft and sent that off to the state close to the beginning of the year. It came back with a couple of suggestions. There are 28 priority actions that are being submitted to council to adopt, and they'll be activities that we'll pursue over the next 12 to 24 months. The local housing action plan is a response to the existing housing pressures in the state. Council will be well aware that housing pressures, up the East Coast, all over Australia, and in fact in many other places overseas. It provides an opportunity for council to pull on some of the policy levers and investment attraction potential for the private sector to help alleviate the existing housing affordability and housing diversity issues that we're experiencing at the moment. We are keen to see the plan approved. We have a couple of grant funding applications that have already been submitted, and we think that by council agreeing to the actions in this document that it will provide great support for the funding application. So it's not necessarily for council to go out and start physically building the houses. It's not necessarily that council is going to become a housing provider, but it's pulling on the levers that council has in infrastructure and policy just to alleviate the current pinch points in the housing market.
Look, I'll speak to this one. I'm very supportive of this report and the plan. I think at the very minimum it allows us to have a dialogue with our community around what is a very important issue out there at the moment. So I think having a dedicated plan and some measures in place that we can work with the community on and addressing the housing crisis and the challenges we see in housing is an important step and something that I think would really be well supported in the community generally.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm also speaking in support of the plan. I think we've all read a lot of reports and media about housing issues over the years. This one is a bit different, that it is actually providing some solutions. So very happy about that. Thing is, for local government, they're somewhat limited unless we go out and pick up hammers, really at the coal face. But there are a number of different things in here that I agree with. Some I'm still working on, but I think it's great that it's covering important things like workers' accommodation, different types of accommodation through social initiatives, right down to housing diversity. So I appreciate all the work that's gone into it. Happy to support.
Any other councillor like to speak to the report? Okay. The motion that council adopt the Whitsunday Regional Council Local Housing Action Plan. the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11.5, planning scheme amendment, short-term accommodation. Move Councillor Finlay, second Councillor Wright. Mr McGaffin, would you like to speak to this report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors will no doubt that short-term accommodation has been a really interesting talking point amongst the council for some time in a response to council request to alter the planning scheme. What you have in front of you is what we think is a pretty reasonable plan as far as the councillors were indicating that they didn't want to see a proliferation of short-term accommodation in the traditional standard low-density residential areas. Now, it would be easy, I guess, in one way to prohibit short-term accommodation from the low-density residential zone. But to understand that, you need to look at the zones, and we thought when we looked at it, there were quite a few locations that were zoned low-density residential that were traditionally used for tourist type accommodation, very amenable areas close to the coast, close to a lot of the bays and the attractive areas where tourists would like to venture. So we have introduced some inclusion areas. So essentially what the amendment seeks to do, excuse me, is to say no short-term accommodation in low-density residential zones except for the areas that are identified. And the council is able to mix and match, add or subtract to those areas. We think we've done a pretty reasonable job. Councillors may have some fine-tuning to occur, but essentially the zoned areas are appropriate for short-term accommodation. There's quite a few of those. But essentially it's locking short-term accommodation out of the traditional, typical suburban low-density residential zones.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Finlay?
I'll do speak to the motion, Mr Mayor. One, I also like to applaud the staff for bringing this to the councillors. Yourself and I, we've only been here 4 months, so it's something that was obviously an issue straight away once we come on with all the rules for short-term accommodation. And I applaud the staff for bringing this before the council and for us for consideration. I also think this is something that's well needed. Obviously, there's conjecture around the short-term housing accommodation, as the Director has mentioned, in the low residential areas, and yeah, within the current town plan, I guess there's absolutely really no way, in one way, that we can approve or not approve those ones because of that. So I really, I think this is great. This will go out to consultation. We will hear from the public as well. We'll get their submissions into those zoning areas that we're proposing on here as well. So it's just great that we're able to go out there and gather as much information in from the public and go for the generals. And at the end of the day, we'll have an amendment to the town plan, which should be good for us going forward. And then hopefully will make it a lot easier for us to when we're having to deal with some of these applications. So in the future, Director, like if this goes through and someone puts a development application in for a short-term housing in a allowable zone, and there is any submissions, do they still come back to council, or was it delegated authority to the staff?
Thank you, Councillor Finlay. In some of the zones, the short-term accommodation will still be impact accessible, and the council's policy at the moment is if it is exhibited no submissions, it is dealt with under delegation. If a submission is received, it will come to this table. Your comment about if this goes through, you were right when you started that this is the beginning of the process. It goes out for public consultation, and then that comes back to the council before a further decision needs to be made to either stop the process or continue the process. So there will be an opportunity for council to consider any of the submissions that come in.
That's good.
Councillor Clifford?
Thank you. I have, of course, some issues. I do thank you for taking out the dormitory suburbs out of the areas. However, there is nothing in here to protect the residents, say at Shute Harbour, where 1 in 5 homes is already a short-term accommodation. And for them to become code accessible, no. there has to be some kind of a cap on, even in the areas where we think that it's, you know, it's acceptable and has a lot going for it. There needs to be some kind of a cap. So 20% already at Shute Harbour, where do we stop? I won't be supporting that part of it because I owe it to my residents. The same at Mandalay, Cannonvale Beach area. You know, there's people live there that work and, you know, get up and go. And down at Shute Harbour in particular, very narrow streets. You get 4 cars because there's 4 couples because you can have 8 people. They bring a couple of boats and all the rest of it. And all of a sudden you can't move in the streets. So there needs to be some kind of a cap, and I don't care whether it's in Ely, whether it's in Cannonvale, Shute Harbour or Wilson's Beach or at Bowen, you know. There needs to be some kind of a cap on it.
Councillor Collins.
To Neil, just in regards, the areas that like you say, we get submissions come in proposing one where we're allowed to have it. We still say yes. There's nothing, no comeback on us at all. This is going to give us a leg to stand on, basically, isn't it? So
Yes,
in the
Councillor
court of
Collins.
law sort of thing. It's not going to. We don't have to fork out tens of thousands of dollars if we vote against something that they want there.
No, Councillor Collins, what this aims to do is to be very clear to the community that there will be areas identified as suitable for short-term accommodation and areas where council is saying don't even bother putting in an application. So we're confident in the way we have worded the amendment that there is enough strength in that we would be successful if we ended up in appeal.
So we
in those
we
areas.
probably won't get too many coming to the table. You wouldn't think it would.
I wouldn't expect so, no.
Very good.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Director Neil, I think, and just following on from Councillor Clifford's comment, this is basically just starting the process to open up the planning scheme for discussion on this particular item. So then we will be receiving, I guess, community feedback, and I think it will be interesting to hear from the community, particularly those who live in that area that we have zoned for this type of accommodation. So I think I'm actually interested to hear from the community to find out what their thoughts are surrounding this. So yeah, look, I think this is a good step in the right direction, and one that we definitely need to take because it has been a sticking point for some time. So yeah, definitely looking forward to starting this and gathering feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'll just touch on with Councillor Finlay that within these areas, as Councillor Clifford mentioned, it's code accessible. The neighbours will not be advised of the application. So the likelihood of submissions within these areas is unlikely unless they're reading what development applications are going through on the council portal. Once this shifts over to code accessible, there's no requirement to advise the neighbouring properties. It just goes through the department. So that is one consideration. I agree with many councillors around the table today on this one. It is something that's been long needed. It is something that is starting a process and that I seek the public feedback on. The one before us today only has the 10 areas, and I think they're the areas which will affect the most. So I look forward to the feedback. I certainly expect from the number of submissions that we've seen in Shute Harbour that we will expect many of the residents feel the same way their representative does, and that's something we have to deal with. The question for us today is, if we move ahead with this, the public consultation comes back and it's considered a major change, we then have to go through the state review process again. But I think we're best off starting the process and then giving some real weight to the residents' issues and concerns. Because I know this is protecting the majority of our dormitory suburbs. Thank you.
Just, I guess, Bruce Mayor, probably to the CEO. So I guess once this goes through, then the media and the public consultation starts. So I guess we'll have a public consultation type plan developed to go out there to the community, make sure everyone's fully aware of what we're actually doing here.
Yes, sir.
just in terms of the process, the next step is to actually send it to the state for the initial review. We have to wait for that process to occur before we go on public display. But in terms of the public display, we'll be out and about explaining those areas and providing opportunities for commentary to occur during that time, and then bringing that back to the council so that you can hear all those viewpoints before you decide whether or not to progress further forward.
Councillor Simpson.
Just a comment, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Comment to the CEO, just something just triggered. Will there be a slow down the process with the state election, or is this just general business that just flows through and won't have any impact on the election?
Mayor, so I think at the officer level they'll be processing this particular thing once it's been lodged with them, but it does require the minister to actually sign off the process, and obviously they will be moving into caretaker quite soon, and during that period the minister will not be able to sign. So we'll continue to do work behind the scenes in relation to making sure it's progressing, but it may take a little bit of time during the election process.
Just a comment, yeah, just to speak for it. I know it's going to be a long, drawn-out process by the sounds of that, but I support what all the other councillors have said, and I'll be interested. Hopefully it'll go through and it'll get back to the public and all sorts of submissions. You'd never know what might come out.
Okay. I'll also add some support to this this motion. Look, I think even in the last term of council, something that I saw caused quite a bit of division, and you know, I think it's an issue that we've really needed to address for some time. So I understand that that you know, it may not be perfect, but I think what we've got here is a really good starting point to address the major issue we have around short-term accommodation, and what's presented at this stage strikes a really good balance between achieving that, whilst also making sure we're a region where people can come and invest and feel safe in investing, and you know, have a flourishing tourism industry and so forth. So I think, as mentioned, it's the start of the process. You know, I think it's good that we're taking this step, and look forward to seeing where it goes. So, any further comment or query? Okay. The motion that council decide to make a major amendment to the planning scheme as per the report regarding short-term accommodation, I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 6-1. Okay, item 11.6, infrastructure charges resolutions 2024. Move Councillor Collins, second Councillor Finlay. Director McGuffin, why don't you speak to this one?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I apologise. The state government periodically, hopefully annually, increases infrastructure charges based on the cost of construction, and there's a few different calculations that they throw in. It's not typically just CPI. There's also a construction index. So they've recently increased the charges. So this is just a more or less a process of saying to the council, at the moment we operate under the maximum that's offered by the state. We think that we need to continue at that level to make sure that our LGIP becomes more sustainable from an economic perspective. So our recommendation is that we increase the fees in accordance with the state mandate.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Just a question, and something that I do get asked, particularly in Bowen, but just the infrastructure fees over, I guess, a period of time. It was long before I was here, but it used to be as low as 5,000, then it jumped to 12,000, and then it jumped right up to 30. So I guess just the reason that we set them at the maximum level, and it is in the report why we do that, but just specifically for our council and what those figures actually mean. So just some backing as to why that we do charge the maximum amount.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. The issue is specifically an economic one in regard that council has identified trunk infrastructure, and the infrastructure charges only relate to trunk infrastructure, and that's where it benefits more than one particular owner. So there is some debate over what items of infrastructure are trunk and serve that function and which ones aren't. And often a developer is very keen to identify it as trunk because it means that it needs to be a contribution from council. So basically the infrastructure plan looks at the growth areas and the infrastructure that council needs to provide to make sure that there's orderly and proper development, they're provided with the appropriate services. It then becomes a matter that over time, the trunk infrastructure needs to keep up with development, and that's the responsibility of council. So the LGIP looks forward over the years and says, when development reaches a point, a water meter or sewer point, a road needs upgrading. Now at the moment the council has 4 items in the trunk facilities, and that's water, sewerage, roads and parks. So the 30-odd thousand is only applicable when the development is serviced by all of those 4 standards. So typically rural residential, you don't get water and sewer, so the headworks charges are a lot less because you're effectively only being charged for open space and roads. And we need that because if we don't get the developer contribution, it means that the council wears the total cost. And without knowing the numbers, my argument to you would be that council couldn't afford to fund all the trunk infrastructure without contribution from the development sector. So that's basically what it boils down to.
Just a follow-up. So Neil, that makes sense. Could we have like a one-pager or something? So if we go to the likes of the BCE or Melbourne Chamber of Commerce, look, we've got some information behind us where we can say, this is what council, this is what we need, and this is what it costs us, just so we've got something then to show the people, just to make it easier to understand and break down.
Councillor
Yeah, just supporting Councillor Michelle there, and I think also it's important to, on page 295, I'm not sure if you can get that up here on the screen, where it actually shows the breakdown of that infrastructure charge. So it consists of water of 30%, sewer 27%, transport 40%, and the parks and community facilities only 3%. So it's important to understand that 30,000, whatever it is, figure, is split between those. And you look at our infrastructure, you know, we've seen the revaluation reports on what it costs our road network, drainage, everything like that. And all of that has already been paid for by current ratepayers and everything like that. And obviously it's been built with some capacity there, same with the sewage and the water as well. So it's important that I think if we're going to put this media release out, or not release, but some sort of information sheet, that it's important that we actually show that this is just not all sewage and water. You know, 40% of it is for the roads as well. So, and that backs up why we have to charge this, because as we know, it costs a lot of money to maintain what we've got.
Yeah, that's sorry. And just to follow on, 100%. Like I think, like when we do go to these types of meetings, and they do, you know, certain people do say we should just waiver the infrastructure. Who picks up that bill? Like who picks that up? So I think that's really important to, just to have just a document, simple document that I can understand, the public can understand, and we can talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I support the fact sheet that sort of explains the costs the council bears in the infrastructure world and the recent, not so recent changes from higher levels of government support towards the cost of that infrastructure. The other thing I'd probably like to just point out is it's been a relatively significant raise this year, just over 10%, but I think last year it only went up $400. So I think, we've been wearing the expense of that for 12 months, and this is really a catch-up measure. Unfortunately, we spent 12 months behind the ball, in my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Collins?
Just in regards to Councillor Wright with the 5,000, Councillor Clifton might be able to back me up on this, but many, many years ago, we, at one stage there, the development in Proserpine was 13,000. I think it might have been
25 at the beach.
Yeah, that's right. It was about 25 at the beach and 5 in Bowen. So it was all, when there was a helping up when we bought it all with uniform prices, which it should have been, yeah. So.
Absolutely.
Any further comments? Okay, the motion that council adopt the infrastructure charges resolution 2024 to rescind the infrastructure resolution 2023. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 11.7, donations, sponsorships, grants and in-kind request July 2024. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Clifford. Director Wright, would you like to speak to this one?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, this is just to note the sponsorship grants and in-kind donations for July that have been paid out. So junior elite athletes, there was 13 approvals, totaling $3,250. Sport and Rec Club grants, there was 5 approvals, totaling $5,500, and that was for the Wangaratta Bowls Club, Whitsunday Equestrian Group, Woodworkers and Wood Turners Association, Early Beach Bridge Club, and the Club Outrigger Whitsunday Incorporated. And there was also 3 approvals for donations, totaling $4,950, and that was for the NQ Speedway Riders and Supporters Club, and that was to host. That was to cover one heat race during their event, and that's the 2024 Queensland Sidecar Championships in Bowen. The Proserpine Junior Cricket Club, that was to assist in hosting the NQ Country Cup Junior Cricket Carnival, and the Whitsunday Provers Club, $3,750, and that was for a bus for the folk to attend social outings, and basically it was the same as what we did for the Bowen Provers Club as well. So they can come, Bowen can come down here, Whitsunday can go, so they can so they can all get around. And just also to note that there was no approvals due to no submissions for sponsorship for any type of sponsorship and for in-kind support for the month of July. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Okay, the motion that council note the financial support for the organisations listed in the report, I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 11.8, approved inspection program 2024, dog and cat registration audit. Move Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Finlay. Director Roy. That's the following on Councillor Simpson. On dog and cat registration audit. Director Wright, would you like to speak to that one?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, it's just to gain support to conduct an approved inspection program for 2024 for the dog and cat registration audit. It's basically mechanical. The Local Government Act states that we require a resolution to be able to conduct the audit. The intent is for dog and cat registrations, basically what will happen is that the local laws officers, they will go to properties that don't have dogs or cats registered, knock on those doors just to give them a warning first, okay, to please, they've got 7 days to come in and register. Just check while they're there for multiple excess animals as well, and then it allows us to get our register up to date, so it makes it much easier. When we have the registrations and we get an animal or an animal's lost, we can get it home to its owner.
Can I like to speak to it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just with the numbers here of 4,000 plus dogs, 500 cats, we're obviously not inspecting 5,000 homes. Just, do you know how many extra registrations we do tend to pick up within this inspection?
Yeah. So, not forgetting, Councillor, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you, not forgetting, Councillor, that some of those dogs, there might be 2, at those properties. Generally, we'll pick up, we'll pick up 1,000, 1,500. What I have noticed over the years, and like years ago, that without doing the audit, the numbers tend to decrease because the officers will only get to those where there's complaints and that type of thing, or if they get an impound. But this way, it's amazing the registrations that we'll get in the next week, with Mardo putting some comms out about this, and just anybody that's on the line, we get quite a few regos in as well. So yeah.
Just a little follow-on.
while you're mentioning the communications department, I know we have to pay for advertising space for this notice. There's act requirements within it, but just some of the wording, the general public is probably a bit spurious, I believe. I know we have to comply with the Act, but the Act also says we must include the actual cost of a copy. But, yeah, I'm just wondering if there could be some way that gets our message across in a bit more plain speak for the public, and rather than just being in a bureaucratic speak that realistically I find difficult to understand.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Council, I've got to stick with the bureaucratic speak, but Marto will work his magic and put it out there for the ratepayers and the dog owners. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Any further comment or question? Okay. Motion. Where are we? The council approves the selective inspection program in accordance with the Local Government Act 2009 and in line with the recommendation on the report. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 11.9, Wangaratta Bowls Club lease renewal. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Clifford. Director Bradshaw will speak to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, you have before you a lease renewal.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just. Sorry, I have to get a prescribed interest in this one.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I should have,
Through the advice
For no reason at all.
Yeah, as per usual, this particular organisation is a client of my accounting firm, so they're a prescribed conflict of interest.
Let's try something.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director Bradshaw.
A few take twos today from me, mate. So
Trying to put you off your game.
it's worked so far. You have before you the lease renewal. You'll note that the lease expired at the 30th of June 24. We would ordinarily have the lease renewed before the expiry. Two issues at play there. One is we wanted to review the area of the lease and work with the club on that. Those conversations started back in April. We then had to engage a surveyor to get the accuracy of the new lease area identified and surveyed, and there's been some delays in procuring and getting that particular piece of work done. The club's satisfied with the new area that's been mapped. It is a renewal to the club who's have been there for about 15 years or so. On that parcel, they have buildings and structures on that land, so it just seeks to confirm that arrangement for the lease for a further period of time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, queries? Okay. Councillor Simpson.
Question. Director, sorry to be following. Director Jason, if their lease expired on the 30th of June, how are they operating, covered by insurance?
We would continue to support them on a month-by-month basis until the new lease is in place, and the insurances would reflect that arrangement.
Okay, the motion that council authorise the CEO to enter into negotiations to execute a 10-year peppercorn lease with the Wangaratta Bowls Club. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried 6-0. Is Councillor Finlay back in the room, please?
There we go, Councillor.
Welcome back, Councillor Finlay.
Thank you. Do apologise.
It was, wasn't it?
Like notes.
For council's interest, item 11.9 was carried 6-0. Item 11.10, Australian Institute of Company Directors course, councillor attendance.
I move to defer this, Mr. Mayor. Just the reasons for this, just to have a discussion around, more of a discussion around personal development, just around the table, please.
Okay. Those in favour? The procedural motion? Those against? The motion is carried 5-2 to defer following discussion around professional development training for councils. Item 11.11, implementation of council resolutions. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Collins. Director Bradshaw, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, at points throughout each year of the term, we go back and look at the performance of us carrying out the implementation of the resolutions and the decisions provided by council. At the end of the 24 term, we certainly did some work in making sure we understood what was outstanding from the previous term, and as far as our records allow, we've gone back into the term before that as well to identify actions that may not have been completed. There is generally a high rate of implementation. There will be circumstances where matters take longer periods of time than originally forecast, and there might actually be points in time where resolutions are not able to be acted upon. And there's a matter coming up in the agenda after this that highlights that. Otherwise, it does demonstrate that the organisation is supporting the decisions and the implementation of those decisions and actions determined by council and being carried out by the officers on behalf of council. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Questions of you?
Just a quick one. Through the mayor. Director Jason, just the table. I know there is some resolutions there that date back from last year. Is there a time frame, like if it is a report or something like that, to be brought back to the table? Is there a time frame as to when it should be back by?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I might seek some guidance from the CEO. Generally, where matters are determined to be brought back, we try to do that as quickly as possible, depending on the availability of the information that we might need, whether that requires any external assistance or whether it's going to take time to get specialist advice. But beyond that, generally as soon as practicable, unless we get some agreements in council. Otherwise, CEO might want to add to that.
I think it's good practice in the resolution to say it's coming back to the next meeting or to set a date in the future. I think that gives us a bit more guidance. But yeah, this exercise enables us to go through that list and actually determine what is still outstanding and to actually bring it back forward. All of the directors have now access to the resolution register, and obviously we'll be encouraging them every month to just go through, is there anything outstanding, and we actually progress through them. So it's good practice to actually do it every year and make sure we have a look at them and see what's there. But the concept is, if council gives a direction in relation to a resolution, then we should be acting on it as quickly as we possibly can.
Any further comment or question? Councillor
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just from a statistical point of view, that represents over 99% of the actions being completed. So, yeah, well done.
I'll just add further to that. Well done. I think it is good to see such a high level of these being actioned, and I think even speaking to the ones that are still outstanding, there's generally a level of understanding of where most of those are at. I think even one there which we've got coming up next on the report. So, any further comment or question? Okay. Motion that council receive the report detailing implementation of council resolutions. I put to the vote. Those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Item 11.12, rescind council resolution for proposed transfer of land from Glencore. Move Councillor Finlay. Second Councillor Clifford. Director Bradshaw, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and following on from the last report, what's been identified in following up the outstanding resolutions, and it has been going on over a period of years, is that during the decision that was made by council and the action is being finalised, in this instance the appetite for one of the parties has changed, and the resolution that was proposed by council to be enacted now can't be enacted. Essentially the consent before has been withdrawn in relation to those parcels of land, so this resolution seeks to remove that as an action outstanding of council and leave the current owner to deal with those parcels of land and their future management. Happy to take questions.
Any comment or question? Councillor Collins.
The money council spent on investigations into this land, is it reimbursable by Glencore? Or?
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Collins, we intend to write to them to seek some reimbursement of the expenses that council's incurred in getting it to this point in time. That'll happen as an action from council's resolution today.
Thank you.
Further comment or question? Okay. The motion that council rescind the offer to accept the offer to transfer the parcels of land at the 4 locations listed in Bowen. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 11.13, annual Christmas closure. I'll move this one. And second, Councillor Simpson. Director Bradshaw, would you like to speak to the item?
Councillors, each year we propose how the arrangements for council will be managed through the Christmas period. We have an obligation under council certified agreement with the employees to make that determination before the start of September each year. Consideration's been given to the timing of both Christmas and New Year being midweek in the current calendar that we're looking at for the 24 year. And so in the interests of trying to generate some time for the staff to have a break through that period of time, we've sought to close for a longer period than has been traditionally undertaken, bearing in mind that the essential services delivered by council will continue to be delivered during that time, and there'll only be restrictions really around the actual public holidays of Christmas, Boxing Day and New Year. Other than that, there'll be staff on call working to the normal arrangements that we have for on-call weekend and break periods. This is really about saying that the offices and the interactions with the public from a customer service and library perspective will change through that time, but essential services, waste, the tips, etc. will continue to remain open. Happy to field any questions.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Penlow?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So, recommendation. So, if outside these hours, like we get a complaint during that 2-week period, you ring the council number, goes through the call centre, they log your name, and then they'll forward it on to whichever department. Is that how it works? Yeah.
Through Mr Mayor, yeah. So we do have a defined after hours service. So those on call and urgent and emerging issues are dealt with. They come through our after hours call centre, and we have staff in arrangements right throughout the organisation on how we manage each and every piece of service that's required during that time, whether it's related to dogs, noise, rubbish, water, sewer. Those all have arrangements in place so those services can be maintained to the community.
Councillor Dunn?
Thank you. I know we have the after hours telephone service. You can see variance and slight improvement in that over time. I'm just wondering with the emails coming in, is there a similar after hours service for emails for a 2-week closure? They are still monitored and actioned?
I'll attempt to speak to that, Mr Mayor. Generally the office won't be open during that time. If there are urgent and emerging issues, we'll have someone available to look at those, but generally the closure of the office, we would expect people to contact the after hours services if it's an urgent and emerging issue. If it's just continuing business of council, then replies won't necessarily be generated, but we'll talk as a team and look at how we could manage the expectations around that over that Christmas period.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you. I'm going to talk in support of this. I think we're talking extra time, but it's only a day after and before. So, and really the 2-week period that the office is closed for, it's no different to any other business in town. Usually the offices and the trades, they close for that period anyway. So town is relatively quiet, except for the butcher shops and supermarkets and that sort of thing at that time of year. So, yeah, look, I'm happy to support that today.
Sheldon's taking the words out of my mouth. I wanted to speak in support of it as well. It's probably unfortunate that Christmas falls during the week, but we need to support our staff I see them out there when there's tragic accidents on the road on Sunday evenings and in the pouring rain. They put signs up for flooding, and that's still going to happen regardless of this. So yeah, I just want to support the motion.
The motion that council endorses the closure of council offices, service centres, depots for the Christmas New Year period from the 23rd of December to the 6th of January 2025. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 6-1. Item 11.14, memorial request. Thanks, Doc. Move Councillor Wright, second Councillor Finlay. I'd like to speak to the item.
Mr Mayor, thank you. I take the report as read and answer any questions.
It's all right.
Yeah, thank
You
you.
get out easy. It's
One
easy
job. One job, one report.
I did attend the Thanks Doc event on Saturday night. So basically, it's been a small group, a small working group that's put this event together, and it's to thank and celebrate our local doctors that have been in our community for several decades. I was lucky enough to speak on behalf of the Mayor and Council on Saturday night, and it was quite emotional for me. I think, just having that same doctor for 4 generations, it's a pretty massive thing. And I know we often say that we don't get the same services and that in our community because it is a smaller community. However, the level of care that we do receive from our doctors, because we are a small community, you don't get that in the city. So I think we are very, very lucky in that way, and to have these particular doctors who set up and live and have families in our community, it doesn't get any better than that. So just 100% behind this. I think this would be a great outcome and great recognition for the great work and long hours that they do.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Well said. Any further comment? Okay, the motion that council approve the request from the Bowen Chamber of Commerce to install a memorial plaque for the 17 local doctors at Bowen Town Square. I'll put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, how are we tracking for time? Right. So item 12 is moving us into confidential.
Yeah, we dealing with the supplementary agenda.
So the late report will come back to. Yeah, it's at 13, so it's in there as a late item, a late report item. So we'll deal with that after we come back from confidential.
Yeah, can we do a decision motion that we bring forward?
Okay. Those in favour? Okay, we'll bring item.
It's just a financial
Carried
monthly financial
unanimously.
report. So
Yeah, you can stay. We're moving an item forward. So
yeah, it's just a financial report.
so moving on to. Yeah, so just to explain what happened there, Councillor Finlay passed a procedural motion to bring the item 13 forward. So item 13.1, which is a monthly finance report. Can I have a mover? Mover Councillor Finlay, second Councillor Wright. Director Bradshaw, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Councillors, you have before you the monthly report for the start of the financial year, July 2024. One thing for me to note is that a lot of our focus over the last 4 to 6 weeks has been in the completion of the annual financial statements for the 23-24 financial year, and as a consequence of that, this has been tabled as a late report. The same people doing the annual statements are the ones doing the monthly statements. And it just happens at this time of the year. There are some matters for me to explain in relation to the report. Because it's the start of the financial year, it does show the actual to-date position as an operating deficit of $5.3 million. That's really generally related to the timing of when the rates notices were struck, for want of a better term. So we do our best each year to get them out as quickly after the budget. They were issued or struck essentially on the 7th of August. So the revenue that relates to that isn't provided for in the financial statements for the month of July, and so that there's actually no, accrued revenue coming in there sufficient to cover the expenses. The other anomaly that does exist in the reports is on page 4 of that attachment for the monthly report, and it relates to the year-to-date employee costs. You will notice the on-cost bar there is the actual is double essentially what the budgeted on-costs are. There's been a timing issue in the apportionment of that on-cost allocation, so it has skewed those statements in relation to the overall employee costs. That will be corrected, and we will restate the position for the month of August. So it does skew a little bit, those overall employee costs. So they're not necessarily comparable going forward. In relation to the representation of the cash balances position, I have had some questions on that. I just want to clarify the position that is reported there. So we are carrying in the accounts at the moment some $15 million of prepaid grants. They are both for operational and capital projects. Now, that money hasn't all been received this financial year, and that was one of the questions that's come forward to me. We actually keep a running balance of those grants, and that's represented by things like the DRFA program of work where money's paid for in advance, other operational grants that assist projects throughout the year. So it is a running balance, it's not a year-to-date balance for this financial year. And the other point to note there is that as we present the financial statements for next year, we'll also talk about the timing of the financial assistance grant from the Commonwealth Government. It was actually paid in this current financial year in the first week of July, so that's actually reflected in the revenue we have received this year, and it's not reflected in last year's position. And we'll talk to that in the presentation of the financial statements. The cash balance still does remain high, so at the end of the financial year, and with the addition of prepaid some grant money, the cash balance is higher than expected also because we didn't realise the full forecasted capital expenditure for the last financial year. So that will roll forward. The consequence of that is actually more money in the bank than we forecast for the end of the financial year. In relation to the parameters shown for the sustainability ratios, we have been recording those ratios as required by the Department of Local Government. There is a table there again at the bottom of page 7 where the header of the table should say as at July. It's just got a 0 in that table, so that will be corrected as this report is put into the minutes to reflect that as an error. And again, the capital delivery is going to be reported project by project back through the capital delivery and network planning section. We'll just give you a snapshot summary of where that is from a spend position in total at the end of each period. Rates and charges are out there at the moment. We've been receiving a number of queries. The discount date for early payment remains the 5th of September, and we've also issued water notices for the water readings up until June. Those accounts are also out and payable by the end of September. That being some level of detail talk to, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take other questions council might have on the financial report.
Brief one. Thanks, Jason. I know you've all been pressed for time. Appreciate the answers. Just with table 1, income and expenditure, we've got previous year audited there. We actually have 2 audited figures, or is that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yes, we have, Councillor Bowman. The audit was signed off on the 21st of August, so we've actually prepared this report knowing the audited position for last financial year. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments, Councillor Finlay?
Just on that, Jason, the audit report, does that get adopted separate to the highway annual report? Yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yeah, Councillor Finlay. So we will submit the audit report on last financial year, and then the annual financial statements for adoption, and then the annual report for adoption, and they will be presented at the September meeting. Yep.
Okay. Motion that council receive the monthly financial report and financial statements unaudited for the period ended 31st of July 2024. I put to the vote. Those in favour? Motion's carried unanimously. We'll move back to item 12 now, which is going to move us into confidential. Move Jan and second councillor Wright.
Moved,
We're on.
Okay, can I have a mover to come out of confidential, Councillor Clifford, and a second to Councillor Wright at 11:59 a.m. Okay. Just, we get the motion up there on the screen for me, please? Yep, Clifford and Wright. Okay, the motion that Council authorise the Chief Executive to execute Council's direction through the courts and court system. I move it Councillor Clifford, second Councillor Finlay. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried 4-3. Okay, item number 14. Matters of importance. Would any councillors like to raise any matters of importance? Councillor Collins.
Through the mayor to Julie, Julie. I've had a few people come and see me, a few old timers, and older than me. They're very concerned about the peaks in Repulse Bay. Repulse Bay, Allens Road, all down Conway. It's just this place there looks like an excavator's been on the river beach. So the repulse apparently due to the peaks. But it's all national parks, probably by the sounds of it. They need a baiting program with stronger baits than what they're using, obviously, because the dog baits don't work. They're not big enough, not strong enough for the pigs. So if you can work your magic with the national parks and ask them if they can look at doing that, please. Thank you.
Anything further, councillors?
Just on that one, on John's motion there, like, can you include Dryenda in that too? It's the other national parks, and it's similar size, just as many peaks.
Just confirm, you're not moving a motion there.
No,
Just highlighting an issue.
Just general thing, mate. It's just all the national parks out of control down Conway Way. So.
No dry engine to the list, correct? Okay. All right, so if there's nothing further, I'll declare the meeting finished at 12:01 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance.